Join me as we talk all things true crime.
Made contact and shattered.
Liberty, a missing 4-year-old. The parents have called in and thus that the mother had went for a walk, came home, now they can't find her, they've been yelling for her.
Turn it over to another agency. Let's get some help.
Where are your kids? They've been missing for 4 months. You have nothing to say? You're over here in Hawaii? Chad, where are Lori's kids?
4 were stabbed multiple times and were likely asleep during the attack. Some had defensive wounds.
Most of them had just like one that was the lethal stab wound.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for being here for another live stream. We're doing an evening stream yet again. It's just working best for my schedule at the moment. And I do want to just share my screen real quick to show you some of an update that was on the website, the Idaho State website, in regards to their hearing yesterday. This was discussed at the hearing, and now we get it in the physical form. Well, the written form, I guess you could say. Can everyone hear me before I go on? But pretty much, we're going to be discussing the filing yesterday and everything that took place. Everyone's aware, I'm sure, that he has waived his right to a speedy trial. So once, now we thought we were going to be getting the trial in October. I don't know. Was anyone here surprised? I wasn't surprised. In fact, our last live stream was kind of titled with a question mark. Trial starts October 2nd, because it's just sounded too unbelievable to actually take place that early for the magnitude of this crime, a quadruple homicide. It's intense, a lot of stuff for them to go through. Now, we've heard that they want to dismiss the indictment. Now, there's a lot of stuff that's under seal, so we don't really have much. But what we do have is, the defense's order to dismiss the indictment. And they're saying it is hereby ordered that the memorandum in support of motion to dismiss indictment on grounds of biased grand jury, inadmissible evidence, lack of sufficient evidence, and prosecutorial misconduct in withholding exculpatory evidence shall be filed under seal. And it gives the judge's signature. And so here we are, no trial in October. It doesn't seem like very many people were surprised. Now, will we get the trial in early next year, 2024? Unlikely. I think that at this point, maybe like in the middle of next year, if they take death penalty off the table. Now, if they keep death penalty on the table, it could be much longer. And pretty much what we heard yesterday during the motion, which I won't play the whole court hearing because the audio was terrible. Apparently, some people thought it was the typewriter for the court, but actually there's talk that it was a media source that was doing all that typing. I tried to turn up the volume so we could hear it, like in my editing program, and it turned up the volume for the typing. So it just seemed counterproductive for me to, go through it all when you guys have probably already seen it at this point. So I'm just going to play the court TV segment. I thought it was interesting from what I seen. I didn't watch it all. And I have another clip that I want to play as well. But right now, just a sum up of what took place yesterday, there is a camera issue. Now, they've talked about not focusing on Bryan closely and please don't zoom in on our client and all this stuff. And yet it seems as though the media is still doing that. And Anne is, filing motions to remove cameras, essentially. There's an issue with the cameras, even though they've been asked, please don't do this, please don't do that, like as far as zoom ins on Bryan. Now, I thought he was looking a bit like a waiter at a restaurant yesterday in court with the white shirt and the tie, no suit jacket. But, that's just my opinion if we're just looking first glance at him kind of entering the room. But I do kind of see like the media really hasn't listened as far as the criteria that they explicitly said that they wanted, as far as, the cameraman, please don't zoom in on him and this and that. And it just seems like not much has changed. They need to keep the shot like of the whole courtroom, and then whoever's speaking or whatever witness is on the stand, focus on them. Like, I don't understand why that's so hard for the media to kind of follow. And if they keep these issues up, the judge really probably will take the cameras out of the courtroom, and that would just be unfortunate because I think that the transparency in the process is very important, as well as, we've dealt with the gag order. And again, it's not really up to us. It's about giving Bryan a fair trial and, having everything done in a constitutional manner, because he is presumed innocent until proven um, by the court of law. Like, the jury, has to decide. And hello, CDT. Thanks for being here. Hi, Adrian and Ashley. Everyone who has joined, thanks so much. If you haven't hit like or subscribed, I'll ask for you to do so at this moment. And again, thank you so much for being here. So, besides the camera issue that we'll have to hear at a later date, what gets decided in that, jury summons, apparently they talked about how they had gone out, and apparently judge had received a jury summons himself, because remember, it's just done at random. So there's already people, the judge was saying, that are trying to get out of the jury summons and just want no part in being on this jury. So that was interesting to hear. And they're going to resummon people later down the road, since there is going to be a delay now. So pretty much Anne wants the death penalty taken off the table completely. She said at this moment, it seems as though her client is being forced between two of his constitutional rights, one of them being effective counsel, which everyone has the right to, and then the other one, he chose to have the right to a speedy trial. So now she's saying, since he has to choose between, those two things, which are supposed to just be a given to him, being a citizen of the United States, she believes that the death penalty should be taken off the table, and that it's just not fair for her client, Bryan Kohberger, to have to choose between receiving effective counsel or the speedy trial aspect. They're blaming the delays on the state, and that they had everything to do with why he's not getting the speedy trial. So that's what she has to say. It's unfair that he had to pick. And we're going to end up having to wait and see what the court ruling is on that aspect. I would be very surprised if they do take DP off the table. I don't know about you guys, but I don't know. It just, obviously she's doing her due diligence. And hello, Roxanne. And thank you so much for the Cash App you sent. I really appreciate it. And I just appreciate all my moderators and everyone who's joined me right now. So pretty much I'd be very surprised if they took DP off the table. I'm not sure how you guys are feeling. You let me know. Let me switch up my screen. Now, again, this isn't my opinion, but it is some of the chatter I've been hearing. Some people are saying that the push to have no cameras has something to do with the shirt that was worn to court by the aunt. Again, that's not what I'm thinking. Hello, criminality. That's just the chatter that I've been reading. And yeah, I was sort of like shocked. Like, I don't know if Anne is forcing or pushing for no cameras because of that. Like, the shirt the aunt wore, I think it's more so to do with the fact that it seems like every camera person for all the medias are not listening to the criteria that the judge has stated that they want for, the angles, and don't zoom in on Bryan. So let's see what else before we get into the court TV stuff. And I wanted to just go through some of the Kohberger clips that I had saved up so that we can get a bigger picture or just a refresh of the picture, I should say, that we already know. So there is no new info on the rulings regarding the unknown male DNA profiles. Now remember, they want that stuff ironed out. They want to know who the unknown male DNAs are and all that. And when I say they, I mean Bryan's defense team. Um, that seems to be something that the defense is trying to poke at and say, like, okay, what's going on here? Like, why did you only hone in on my client's DNA profile that was found there? What about these other ones? And again, they'll have reasons why it's likely that other people's DNA were going to be found there. But at the same time, we can't leave any room for a juror to have doubt. So we don't have any word on if they're going to be made to kind of proceed with any of that research on those unknown DNAs, but still interesting that it's still being discussed, and the glove that was found outside. So those are definitely holes that the defense is continually bringing up. And now we still have dates for some stuff in the future. It looks like he still has his September 1st motion hearing, and that'll be 4 p.m. Eastern time. So he'll be back in court on September 1st at 4 p.m. Eastern. So World Class Satanist says no cams. They are kind of trying to, the defense is arguing, they might not want cameras. So we'll see. Now, the Gonsalves family asked for prayers yesterday before the motion hearing started. Today on their Facebook page, they said, I want to send a huge thank you to everyone that supports us. We truly have an army of love standing right next to us. There are no words for what you all do for us on a daily basis. I wish I could meet each and every one of you in person and give you a hug and thank you. Things are going to get tough, but please stick with us. We need the Gonsalves army of love every step of the way. Love you all. God bless. Now, we expressed our own frustrations yesterday when we found out about the delay. And then I started thinking, well, what about the family's frustrations? I'm sure as part of closure, as part of the grief process, the trial is necessary and vital for all that. So while I'm over here all disappointed, I had to kind of check myself and remember, like, okay, well, obviously they're wanting it so much more and probably had a really bad day yesterday hearing that news. So let me switch my screen up to Court TV. Now, I haven't watched all this, so it'll be a little reaction with you guys. And let me know, moderators, if I'm frozen, because I want to keep my little picture on. But if I'm frozen, I don't want to.
Las Vegas, Nevada, because we have some breaking news in the Idaho student murders case. Bryan Kohberger, he was in court today for a status conference where he waived his right to a speedy trial. That hearing just wrapped up, and now we can bring it to you. So let's listen.
Go ahead.
Hello, Crime Station. Thank you, Richie, for your 1-month membership. I appreciate you being here. So this is Court TV's audio on this. Sorry if it's sounding fuzzy.
Did you read this over? Yes. Okay. What I'm talking about is the written waiver of speedy trial. Yes. Did you understand the terms here? Yes. Which we've already talked about. Yes. And you agree with the signing of the form waiver of speedy trial, Ms. Taylor? Okay, so Mr. Kohberger.
Now you guys know this part. They're asking him like, are you sure you want to do this? Has anyone pressured you into doing this? And they're just making sure that they cover their grounds so that there's no issue in the future of him saying, I didn't know that I couldn't go back once I stated, yes, I was okay with this. Because once he waives it, it's done and over with. And thank you, Candy Cane, for 5 months membership. Let me give the little heart back. And hello, Holly. Thank you for being here. Oh, so basically what I wanted to say, like, it's just earing me out, or like, it's just like creepy, him like saying absolutely. I don't know if I'm just overcritical of it, but I really did not like the way he says absolutely.
Do you want me to accept your waiver? Yes, I do. Okay, and you understand that if I accept your waiver, you're giving up your constitutional right under the United States Constitution and the Idaho Constitution on a constitutional right of speedy trial? I understand. Do you understand that if I accept your waiver, you're also giving up your Idaho statutory right to a speedy trial? Yes. And that is within 6 months of your yes. And you agree with the vendor of the waiver, Ms. Taylor? Kohberger, do you want me to accept your waiver? I do. Based on our discussion, your waiver of these rights expressly in court and also in signing this waiver of speedy trial. Also, you are tendering these waivers on advice of counsel. I will accept your waiver of speedy trial. I find that your waivers are knowing, intelligent, voluntary, and there's actually good cause to recognize that. What I heard from your counsel, Thompson, and my mind. So, with that, we can talk about resetting this trial. I'm prepared to do that today. Sarah?
Your Honor, I would say that we are not prepared to choose the trial date today. And that brings me to kind of the second part of what I wanted to talk to the court and counsel about today. We currently have September 1st as the date for the motion to dismiss the grand jury indictment. Our deadline to file our challenges will be today, and we're prepared to file those today. Our hope is that that particular hearing date give us both challenge the grand jury indictment, and also there are 2 additional motions that we're going to be filing, and we're hoping that we can have those heard. After that time, after we heard the motions, we'd be in a position to meet with the state if they desire to talk about a reasonable trial setting. My preference would be to have us discuss that and reset the trial one time and not do this a number of times and worry about getting subpoenas out and those kind of things. That would be my request. The other deadlines that are in place right now on the court's scheduling order, I think those would be appropriate for us to talk about and the state and defense and
I just want to pause it because they are talking about dates that were set that they obviously need to redo and reset because the discovery is not going to be needed to be, ready by the date that they had it previously, since they're going to be delaying the trial. But I just, at first on Friday, they had said that he had until September 8th to waive his right to a speedy trial. Because remember, that needed to be done in a certain amount of time if he wanted to go back on it. some experts were saying, and legal experts were saying that they would have waited until the 8th, like pretty much like one of the last days to waive the right to a speedy trial, so that they could have used more time to kind of gather discovery or evidence and stuff like that from the prosecution. But they opted to do it today when they had this status hearing. So I think it's all interesting and obviously done for a reason. And Anne is on a mission, clearly. And I don't know, she's got a lot of tricks up her sleeve, I think.
Suggest for the court to order a different scheduling order than one that exists. We just simply want to keep the grand jury and ready to challenge date because that is true. And having the court's decision on that will largely impact what proceeds. If the court will allow, I'd like to briefly address the other two motions that are coming in the content of the debate. Your Honor, we will be filing a motion that has to do with media in the courtroom, particularly for cameras in the courtroom. And that motion should be filed by the end of the day or first thing tomorrow. That comes from today's announcement. The other motion, Your Honor, has to do with what happens to witnesses that the defense might be having. The court will recall how Gabriela Vargas testified last Friday at the hearing. Last night, she was visited by 2 FBI agents and interrogated about her testimony, the timing of the declaration. That, in our view, impacts Mr. Kohberger's due process rights and rights to effective assistance of counsel, and that motion will also be filed later today at first thing.
Now let's talk about 2 FBI agents that showed up at Miss Vargas' house yesterday evening. It was interesting. They interrogated her about her testimony that she gave on Friday about IGG. That I need to have more information on and kind of explained, because a lot of people are skimming over it and I don't really know what to make of that. What do you guys think?
Okay, so that was some breaking news that did happen earlier today. We were finally able to play that for you. Bryan Kohberger, we heard him speaking there, waiving his right to a speedy trial. We do need to take a break here, but we do have much more from the Bryan Kohberger hearing. You won't miss a minute, so keep it right here. You are watching Court TV, your front row seat to justice. Waived his right to a speedy trial. We turned this tape around immediately, so we apologize for any technical glitches that you might see. And you also may notice a static noise. That's in the court feed. That's from a fan that was in the courtroom. So if you hear it, that's what it is. We have more now from that hearing, which just wrapped up.
Genetic genealogy field. Those indicated as it was reported to the investigators, to our investigators, that she was redating on some of the things that she testified to in court. When we heard of that, I reached out to the investigators and said, can you find out what's going on? And the FBI indeed undertook an investigation. And their reports are that Ms. Vargas claims that some of what was in her declaration, she inadvertently agreed or signed without fully reading it. We're documenting that so we can expose it to the state and to the court, because I think those directly usually what happened last week. That's the only.
So it sounds like some of the testimony that she gave on Friday regarding the IGG, she's retracting. Is that what is going on?
Reason when she was stopped at because reported to us that she was retracting some of what she had testified to, what was in the declaration, and we felt very keen to uncover that. So there was no other motive, no other motivation to it. I just wanted to change the course.
Your Honor, that's certainly different than the information that I received. I would have been happy to be advised about that, but I'm not sure if that's.
This audio issue is the video, not me. I'm confused. There we go.
That's how we sort these things out. So,
Your Honor, that's certainly different than the information that I received. I would have been happy to be advised about that, but I'm not sure if that's accurate. I mean, I'm sure that's what Mr. Thompson heard. I'm not saying that it's all the panel under, but the quality of the information he's received, I'm not sure that's entirely accurate. My hope is that these FBI agents staff will act as far as his home last night. I'm hopefully they reported everything that they talked to her about, and that should resolve the issue.
that's how we sort these things out. So, back to the change of the scheduling order. I think it does make some sense to remove that. You want to just talk about that before we start taking that apart? We don't have to do it right now.
Judge, the state's position is that the court vacate the October trial date, vacate the scheduling order, let us get through what we're going to do on the 1st, and then let's talk and see if we can come to an agreement. If not, allow the court to set a date for trial is realistic, and then have a scheduling order generated that reflects the time of preparing for trial and is useful for both parties to do what they need to do.
Yes, Your Honor, I agree. We should get through the hearing on the 1st, and then we're happy to meet with Mr. Thompson in his office.
Now, in addition to the defense maybe needing more time for everything, in my opinion, I almost feel like the prosecution probably was happy that it wasn't going to start October 2nd as well. What do you guys think?
And discuss appropriate trial dates.
Yeah, counsel can talk about some of those things before they're taking it back to the court.
Yes.
I fully support that. So I'm vacating the trial, October 2nd, and I'm vacating the scheduling order set for September 1st. Okay? Accepted Mr. Kohberger's waivers to the trial. I have maybe a personal issue to discuss with you. First of all, I wanted to tell you I'm getting requests for excuses already from potential jurors, and what I'm doing is not excusing anybody at this point. The commissioner, jury commissioner, is just collecting those, and then we're going to do those excuses on the record with you. Okay, I think that's appropriate in a case like this. Does that make sense, Ms. Taylor?
The excuses are from potential jurors.
They may be. I mean, these are expanding the panel. Okay, because I was thinking that I need a lot more potential jurors to show up.
And we're going to pause things right here for a really short break. So don't go anywhere, because when we return, we'll get you more back into that courtroom for the hearing and the Idaho student.
Court TV.
And welcome back to Court TV Live. We do have some breaking news in the Idaho student murders case. Defendant Bryan Kohberger, he was in court today for a status.
I agree, Tony. I think that the prosecution was probably happy to have more time too. This live started Florida at 9:30, the same time that I've been starting my lives at night. I'm just giving you a little hard time. No, I'm just waiting for the little one to be in bed. And in the morning, she doesn't like to hang out in her crib as long as she used to. Sort of old news. So when she gets up in the morning, she just wants to get right up. So I've kind of switched to going to live until she's completely in bed for the day.
Conference where he waived his right to a speedy trial. We turned this tape around immediately, so we do apologize for any technical glitches that you noticed. I noted earlier when we were watching it, there were some pauses there. You may also notice a static noise, so that's kind of in the feed too. That's from a fan in the courtroom. So just try to listen closely and you can get more of what's happening in court. So let's get you some more from that hearing.
Thank you. So, Mr. Kohberger, did you read this over?
Yes.
Okay, what I'm talking about is the written waiver of speedy trial.
Yes.
Did you understand the terms here?
Yes.
Which we've already talked about.
Yes.
And you agree with the signing of the form waiver of speedy trial, Ms. Taylor?
I do not.
Okay, so Mr. Kohberger, do you want me to accept your waiver?
Yes, I do.
Okay, you understand that if I accept your waiver, you're giving up your constitutional right under the United States Constitution and the Idaho Constitution on a constitutional right of speedy trial?
I understand.
Do you understand that if I accept your waiver, you're also giving up your Idaho statutory right to a speedy trial?
Yes.
That is within 6 months of your name.
Yes.
And you agree with the vendor of the waiver, Ms. Taylor?
I do not.
Kohberger, do you want me to accept your waiver?
I do.
Based on our discussion, your waiver of these rights expressly in court and also in signing this waiver of speedy trial. Also, you are tendering these waivers on advice of counsel. I will accept your waiver of speedy trial. I find that your waivers are knowing, intelligent, voluntary, and there's actually good cause to recognize that. What I heard from your counsel, Thompson, and my mind. So, with that, we can talk about resetting this track. I'm prepared to do that today. Sarah?
Your Honor, I would say that we are not prepared to choose a trial date today. And that brings me to.
So the judge wanted to know, like, are you prepared to set like a new date for the trial? And she's not ready yet. So again, this has a lot to do with them trying to dismiss obviously the indictment that we've seen earlier in the live stream that is under seal. And obviously now she is trying to get the death penalty taken off the table completely for him and arguing that, his constitutional rights were compromised pretty much since he couldn't get the right to a speedy trial and, the ineffective counsel with everything being in such a short time constraint. So that is why she's not ready here to kind of set the date of the new trial because of other things that are taking place that she's filing behind the scenes and everything that we kind of talked about in the beginning of the stream under the let me just refresh you guys on what she's trying to do about what was said about the dismissal of the indictment. And it says pretty much they are claiming that the motion to dismiss indictment on grounds of biased grand jury, inadmissible evidence, lack of sufficient evidence, and prosecutorial misconduct in withholding exculpatory evidence. So that is what they're claiming. And that is why they are arguing, like, let's take DP off the table, and that they want that indictment to be thrown out, the grand jury indictment.
The second part of what I wanted to talk to the court and counsel about today. We currently have September 1st as the date for the motion to dismiss the grand jury indictment. Our deadline to file our challenges.
Angela asked if I know how long they have to file if they want to change a venue. I'm not sure on that. I know that there's some experts and legal experts that are stating that the case is so large that they're thinking like it wouldn't really matter in the change venue. But again, they did a change in venue for the Lori Vallow trial. So I don't know. I'm not sure the time limit on that, but it is kind of surprising to me that they haven't tried to do that already. And yeah, I wonder what the misconduct is. And again, this is all alleged. Just because the defense is saying this took place, we don't really know 100% if really misconduct took place. But I do want to know, like, the grounds of what everything she's claiming, where she's coming up with all that.
Today, and we're prepared to file those today. Our hope is that that particular hearing date, we like to keep it, both challenge the grand jury indictment, and also there are 2 additional motions that we're going to be filing. And we're hoping that we can have those heard. After that time, after we heard the motions, we'd be in a position to meet with the state if we desire and talk about a reasonable trial setting. My preference would be to have us discuss that and reset the trial one time and not do this a number of times and worry about getting subpoenas out and building up. That would be my request. The other deadlines that are in place right now on the court's scheduling order, I think those would be appropriate for us to talk about the state and defense and perhaps suggest for the court to order a different scheduling order than one that exists. We simply want to keep the grand jury indictment challenge date because that's soon, and having the court's decision on that will largely impact what happens next. If the court will allow, I'd like to briefly address the other 2 motions that are coming and have not been on the debate. Your Honor, we will be filing a motion that has to do with media in the courtroom, particularly cameras in the courtroom. And that motion should be filed by the end of the day or first.
So she's talking about the motions that they're filing about removing cameras in the media in the courtroom.
The other motion, Your Honor, has to do with what happens to witnesses that the defense might have. The court will recall we had Gabriella Vargas testify last Friday on the argument. Last night, she was visited by 2 FBI agents and interrogated about her testimony, timing of the declaration. That, in our view, impacts Mr. Kohberger's due process rights and his rights to effective assistance of counsel, and that motion will also be filed later today.
In connection to hearing this here, the motion along with these 2 more motions to be heard on September 1, Wisconsin.
I don't think so, Your Honor, having not seen exactly what the motions are, but you're saying they're fairly straightforward. I would think that we could, if we look at the motions, we have issues with great Ms. Taylor. I will, for the record, since Ms. Taylor has brought up Ms. Vargas getting coordinated counsel background. Over the weekend, Ms. Vargas, after she testified, engaged in some electronic communications with others.
All right, we are continuing to watch that breaking news out of Idaho, where Bryan Kohberger waived his right to a speedy trial. We do also have some new developments in the widower murder retrial in Nevada. We are now in verdict watch. You can see the clock. That's around immediately. So again, if you do hear any technical issues, you may also hear this glitch. Just we apologize in advance for this court feed that we got in. And remember, it's just a fan in the back. So try and listen closely if you can. Here's more from that hearing.
And the genetic genealogy field, those indicated as it was reported to the investigators, to our investigators, that she was redating on some of the things that she testified to in court. When we heard of that, I reached out to the investigators and said, can you find out what's going on? And the FBI indeed undertook the investigation. And preliminary reports are that as far as claims that some of what was in her declaration, she inadvertently agreed or signed without fully reading it. We're documenting that so we can expose it to the state and to the court, because I think those directly is what happened last week. That's the only reason that she was contacted, because it reported to us that she was retracting some of what she had testified to and what was in the declaration. And we felt very huge to cover that system. There was no.
So Bill Thompson is saying the only reason why the FBI agent showed up at her house after her testimony was because she was retracting some of it.
No other motivation to it. I just wanted to thank you.
Your Honor, that's certainly different than the information that I received. I would have been happy to be advised about that, but I'm not sure that's.
Their audio and feed is all types of glitchy, so I'm just going to skip
advised about that, but I'm not sure that should resolve the issue.
I think we've all seen it today anyways, right, guys? But Court TV, I don't know, it was like freezing at times.
I have maybe a personal issue to discuss with you. First of all, I wanted to tell you, I'm getting requests for excuses already from potential jurors, and what I'm doing is not excusing anybody at this point. The commissioner, jury commissioner, is just collecting those, and then we're going to do those excuses on the record with you. Okay, I think that's appropriate in a case like this. Does that make sense?
The excuses are from potential jurors.
They may be. I mean, these are.
Defense attorney Elizabeth Baker. Hi there, Elizabeth. Okay, so we have been watching this hearing where Bryan Kohberger waived his right to a speedy trial. Now, it seems like we don't know when this trial could get underway. What are your thoughts?
Well, I'm shocked they didn't waive prior to this time. That would be the normal course in a case of this magnitude, especially a death penalty case. It is something that, I mean, what I believe is that the defense probably hadn't waived the speedy trial issue because they were hoping to have their client testify at the preliminary hearing and or at least test the state's evidence out at the preliminary hearing. It sounds like there may be some motions about the preliminary hearing or the indictment process that the defense is going to be filing.
And that was everything that we've read in the beginning of the stream and then like 10 minutes ago about them claiming that there was misconduct, et cetera, insufficient evidence was on there as well. So they are still fighting the secret grand jury process and all that. So there's a lot of things that were in play, which is why they didn't try to delay this trial sooner. They were doing other things and filings too.
This is completely within the norm for a case of this magnitude. There is what would be really out of the norm was to have a case like this go to trial within a year. I mean, these homicides were last November, and that would sort of be asking for this trial to be tried multiple times because of constitutional errors.
Yeah, his attorney even argued and said that this ensures that he will have effective representation, which of course is extremely important. Elizabeth, thank you. I also want to bring in Court TV legal correspondent Chanley Painter. She has been covering the Idaho student murders case from the very beginning. So Chanley, I want to bring you in to get your take. What do you make of Bryan Kohberger's decision to waive his right to a speedy trial?
Great to be with you again, Kelly. I think it was to be expected, given the hearing that we were present at last Friday and the really intricate scheduling conference and order that was issued saying that certain deadlines for certain dates to meet that October 2nd trial date that was still set, and it is a death penalty case. And at that point, the prosecution, raised the red flag, saying it seems pretty unrealistic. But at that time, the defense didn't waive the right. They instead asked for this status conference, possibly to sit down and discuss it further with their client. We know in the state of Idaho, Kelly, that a defendant has to be present in person at a hearing in order to waive a speedy trial, because there is that colloquy back and forth with the judge that happened today. So it was to be expected. I've been in communication with the victim, Kaylee Gonsalvez's family, over the last several days, and today just now communicating with her father and how they were fearing this because they want this to happen as soon as possible, some sort of closure and justice, and they're afraid now that since he's waived the speedy trial right, that it may put this years from now before they actually receive full justice for Kaylee and her friends, the other victims in this case. So we do still know that as far as right now, there's still a hearing for next Friday to take up the defense motion to dismiss. They're trying to attack the very indictment against him. They actually asked for a stay several weeks ago so they could further investigate the grand jury process. That was granted and fulfilled. So we can expect them to still be challenging every step of the way what the prosecution does, Kelly.
Yeah, Chanley, and you did mention Casey Gonsalvez's family, and I know they've been so active on Facebook. You've had encounters with them too, and they really were saying that they really feared this because, as you mentioned, now this could go on for years. And when you talk about any kind of closure, not that there ever could be any closure for family in this case, but before it was supposed to be set for October. Now it could be years. Just heartbreaking news for the family. They said that this was something they feared, as you mentioned.
Now, I just hope that Shannon Gray, the legal representation for the Gonsalves family, kind of prepared them for this like a while ago. Like for him to go to trial in October would be, really, really rare and really under extraordinary circumstances. Like I hope he explained that to them so that they really didn't get their hopes up too much, because I think even people who weren't lawyers, we were all kind of just like, that seems like really quick. Like I get it. It's like, you have the right to a speedy trial if you choose so. But with everything that we kind of had seen, their phone data from CAST, every little detail as far as, the interview process with witnesses and crime scene people and the FBI agents that they wanted training records on, it just seemed like it would have been way too convenient and way, it would have been extraordinary for them to start in October, because I think by the time they filed and asked for this, it was less than 40 days away or something, so it's just with the murders happening in November last year. I mean, it hasn't even been a year yet. And when it starts in October, that still wouldn't have been a year since the crime. So I just feel like we kind of all expected it to kind of not take place in October. And I'm just hoping that the families kind of knew that this was a possibility also.
Anything more from them?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely, Kelly. In communicating with them, and like you said, they do have a very active Facebook page, the Gonsalves family Facebook page, where they post people that send them encouraging messages and gifts from all over the world, and they post photos and updates about, Kaylee's new niece that's named after Maddie and Kaylee. Her name's Maddie Kay. They post photos of her, of the dog Murphy that was at the scene when the murders happened as well. There's updates on him. him, the dog, and they posted earlier today asking for prayers because this was such a fear. Especially Kaylee's mother, Christy, is very in distress at this decision. And so, what I know of them, and I've seen them in person, met them in person, obviously. They are each other's support system, and so they have each other through this time, and that seems to be where they're going. And there wasn't a trial date set yet, Kelly, so that's another sign that it may be a week or two or more before we learn an actual trial date for them. And we know with death penalty cases, it's a lot more complicated and a lot more filings to come that we'll be covering as this moves forward.
Sure. And Chandler, we did hear the judge talk about jurors and how he's already getting excuses from potential jurors in this case. I just think it's really going to be tough to find some jurors who don't know anything about this case. I would think the excuses are going to keep on coming.
Absolutely, Kelly. That's a great point that you bring up. I've been to Moscow, Idaho, many times. I've lost count of how many times I've been in that community. It's a wonderful community.
So if the judge is receiving random jury summons himself, it's really, why aren't they moving to a different venue? Moscow is not that big, so how long until they do that, do you guys think? You think that's right around the corner?
County's a beautiful place to be. It's a rural, small part of North Idaho, and everywhere you go, people know about this case. Of course they know about it, and it's kind of like the elephant in the room. A lot of them don't even want to talk about it or mention it. They want to move on from it. And it's a university town, so the town of Moscow is maybe around 11,000 in population, but when students are there, it's like 20,000. It's like doubles in population when school's in session. So it's very much a college town, not far from Pullman, Washington, another college town as well. So I can see where the judge is concerned, and they're going to have to make sure that all the precautions are in place to impanel a fair and impartial jury. I know that he mentioned he was going to summon 1,000 jurors the week before the October 2nd trial date to try to narrow it down to those prospective jurors, Kelly. So that will probably be heavily litigated. Will we have a change of venue motion too from the defense? Because again, it's such a rural community there where so many people are familiar with this case.
And Shanley, I'm glad you bring that up. So thank you for talking about that and your insight. I want to ask our criminal defense attorney, Elizabeth Baker, who's still with us. What do you think? Do you think we'll see a motion for change of venue in this case?
Sure, I do. It's a very small community. It's going to be difficult to get that many jurors who are neutral and don't have a preformed opinion about the case. I don't necessarily expect that motion would be positive for the defense. I don't necessarily think it would be granted, but I think it would be expected. Absolutely.
Elizabeth, I just also want to ask you about this motion to dismiss hearing that his public defender has talked about. She's fighting this grand jury indictment that led to Kohberger's arraignment. They mentioned that briefly during the hearing today, talking about that as well as other motions that she's going to be bringing forth. She mentioned she's going to have at least 2 more additional motions in addition to that one. What are your thoughts on that and that motion to dismiss?
There could be a number of reasons for the motion to dismiss. It could be that the defense believes that hearsay or inadmissible evidence was presented to the grand jury. I'm unclear about the specific basis. We're probably not going to know more until the motion and its detail is filed with the court and becomes public knowledge. I would say there are probably some technical issues. The problem with motions to dismiss grand jury indictments is that very frequently there's no remedy. And, it's very difficult to the court to formulate a remedy. What is the remedy? Is it reindictment? The case surely won't be dismissed on the basis of a motion like this. I mean, who knows what the defense is saying? If they're saying there was misconduct, if they're saying there was hearsay, they were saying there's other evidence, which is clearly not constitutionally admissible. We'll have to see what the details are about this.
All right, Elizabeth, thank you so much. We appreciate your insight tonight. It's been a pleasure being with you and hearing from Chanley in this case.
All right, hold on. Let me switch up my screen for this News Nation report. And now we read what the defense is claiming are the reasons why they want that indictment dismissed. So that court TV segment, she hadn't seen the court filing the motion basically in the form that we had it. I have it on my community page, shared it earlier in the stream. So they're pretty much stating that the reason why they want that dismissal of the indictment again is because of grounds of a biased grand jury, inadmissible evidence, lack of sufficient evidence, prosecutorial misconduct, and withholding exculpatory evidence. And all of that is under seal. So we have to wait for the details still. But those are the grounds that they're claiming are why they want the indictment thrown out. So this is new. I haven't watched it yet.
Joining me now is criminal defense attorney and legal analyst Bernarda Villalona. Bernarda, you and I have talked about this case before in the past. Are you at all surprised at Kohberger waiving his right to a speedy trial? Was that inevitable given the amount of evidence in this case?
Absolutely. I am not surprised that he waived his right to a speedy trial. I was not expecting that the trial for 4 homicides was going to be tried in October, just months after an arrest. You have to think that in this case, you're talking about trying 2 cases. One, you're talking about the guilt, whether he's guilty or not guilty, but also his defense attorney has to prepare for the death penalty stage. And that sometimes is even longer than the actual trial itself. And you're talking about resources, motion practice, determining whether you need to hire experts, consulting with those experts, looking at the evidence, evaluating the evidence, and remember that there's a huge digital trail here. So there's a lot to review. And as you notice, there's usually only one defense attorney that appears on behalf of Bryan Kohberger. And in a case like this, they need a team to be able to get the case ready, not for just a trial in October, but even a team to get it ready within the next 6 months to a year.
Bernarda, the defense also wants the death penalty taken off the table entirely. Is that solely up to prosecutors?
So first off, it is the prosecutor's office, the ones that applied for the death penalty to be applied in this case. So yes, it is up to them. Now, in terms of getting the death penalty off the table, what the defense is doing is filing a motion with the court and hoping that the judge will actually determine that the death penalty shouldn't be applied in this case because of certain violations. However, it's highly unlikely. The district attorney's office in this case has met every deadline, from the grand jury presentation to the filing of the notice to being and answering ready for trial at each and every court date. So it's not going to be granted. Bryan Kohberger will be facing the death penalty, whether the trial is in October, December, or next year. He is going to be meeting that fate.
Bernarda, one more question on this, on Kohberger, before I move on to another topic. Since we know that they have not found a murder weapon, do you think Kohberger will take the stand?
So that is $1 million question in a case like this. And that's something that you roll the dice on. It's a very technical analysis when you talk about having someone take the stand, because Bryan Kohberger, if he takes the stand, he's not going to be confined just to the questions asked by his defense attorney that he's prepared for. It's going to be an open book, open season for the prosecutor to be cross-examining. And he's going to have to answer a lot of questions like, why was he in the area the day after the murders at the scene?
Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com.
Yeah, I don't think that that if they don't have the murder weapon, I don't get why that would mean that he would have to take the stand. All right, let's just refresh a little bit of what we know about Kohberger. This was part of the documentary I did. Again, this was only a documentary based on the investigation process and everything leading up to his arrest. This part at the end has information about Bryan that we kind of found out after his arrest through people that knew him. We're still getting information about him. In fact, this week we discussed it on the live stream the other night, about the administrator at the law enforcement program, the schooling program that he was in that he got kicked out of. I found that timing of that story being brought to the mainstream sort of strange, considering he just filed to delay the trial this week. I don't know. I just think it's all very strange, the timing that information about him came out. I do think that it's possible a filing will be put through about a change in venue. Whether or not it's granted or not, we don't know. But yeah, I just wouldn't be surprised if Anne tries that one next, because, she's doing everything she can for Bryan. And that's something that everyone's kind of wondering if that's next. So we'll just refresh a little bit of what we know about Bryan through stuff that came out when he was arrested. After the trial's over with, I'll probably do a second documentary kind of recapping everything that took place, from now until the end of the trial. So this is just about the investigation process itself. And again, thank you all for being here. If you haven't hit like, please do so. I'm just going to play this because my fiance, I think, is coming home from the airport. So we'll be wrapping things up.
We hope that they picked the right guy.
I said early on that we're not going to let any stone go unturned. And I meant that. And we're following up on everything, just like we're in this new phase now. And we're going to follow up to get to know who he is and everything about him that we can.
Bryan's affect in general, it wasn't as if he came off, of course, as somebody seemingly outwardly crazy, but she said she noticed that he had a really weird food fetish. And she said it went beyond being vegan. He required his aunt and uncle to buy brand new pots and pans for him to eat out of because he refused to eat from anything that had meat ever cooked in it. And she said it seemed to be an OCD type of situation. She said otherwise he didn't seem that odd, but I spoke to another aunt by marriage who said that the murder suspect's father, Michael, came from a fairly big family that she said lived very close to the edge. They didn't pay a lot of attention to rules. They were a little bit wild. A couple of the uncles of the murder suspect, she said, served time in jail, but for very minor offenses like gambling or things like that. But I got this sense from both these aunts that the family was pretty odd. And the father's family originally comes from Brooklyn. They later all migrated out to Vegas. And Bryan's father, Michael, is the one that was kind of estranged from the rest of his siblings. And I also heard that he could be kind of difficult with his siblings. And I'm talking now again about the murder suspect's father.
Online profiles that appeared to be Bryan from years ago started popping up.
Everything I've ever done makes no sense. How did things get this way? I'm stuck in this void of nothing, feeling completely no emotion, feeling nothing. I feel dirty, like there's dirt inside of my head, my mind. I feel no self-worth. I'm intelligent, but I feel the opposite. I am stuck in the depths of my mind where I have to constantly battle my demons. Am I here or am I fake? Now I look in the mirror and I see this sickly, tired, useless, and stupid man in the mirror. He is a complete disgrace. He doesn't even deserve to live. I remember when I was 15, I would wander alone at 2 a.m. Everything was so generic. Nowhere felt like home. I saw things that were not there, a different reality. I felt eerie and alone. I died during those nights. I felt like a criminal, but where was my record? It is as if the ringing in my ears and the fuzz in my vision is simply all of the demons in my head mocking me. I fall asleep, but I wake up quickly to bloody screams. Is any of this here? Am I brain damaged? No, all caps. Then why am I like this?
He was just your average guy. I met him through some friends, and they told me that he was a little weird. And he was a little socially awkward, I guess you could say. But he wasn't a bad guy. He needed a job, so I worked at a pizza shop at that time, and they were hiring. I said, yeah, he come on in and apply, and he did, and he got the job. So I worked with him for a little bit, but he was quiet.
Conversation like with him?
It was so long ago. It was like 2013, but he didn't have a girlfriend. I do remember that. And my wife went to school with him. They graduated together, and she doesn't remember him ever having a girlfriend, and I don't remember him ever having a girlfriend. And he didn't have many friends, so he would do anything to fit in, and would do he just wanted to be liked by everybody. But he wasn't a bad kid. He was all right. And I knew his sister. I went to school with his sister, and I knew his father worked for the school, and I believe his mother did too. But his family, they were all nice people, and his dad was always really nice to me, very polite. I never thought that he would do something like that. Yeah, he did use drugs. That's how I really know him too. He was a big heroin addict, and so was I. I got 6 years clean now. I work in treatment and everything, but back then I was using, and so that's how I know for a fact he was using. I've got high with him a couple times and used with him. And I remember one night we went out and his car broke down, and his dad had to come out, and he got pretty angry because his car broke down and everything, and we couldn't get what we needed that night. And I knew other people that dealt drugs, and we would deliver drugs to him a lot. And so that's when I heard about this case. I haven't heard from him in so long. And then I heard about this, and it said that he was going to college. I said, I haven't heard from him. I guess that's what he's been doing. He must have cleaned up. I know he was in and out of rehab a couple times, but he really did. He cleaned up and was going to college all these years.
Ask you one last question. We've heard from people that he had a track record of being inappropriate, borderline offensive to women. Did you ever see that in any of your interactions with him and interactions with women?
Not in my time knowing him. I've never seen him ever act like that towards women. I've never seen him come off that way ever towards anybody.
Well, first of all, our records show he was in our employment for 4 months, but he probably only worked about 20 days for us. And as far as filleting fish, he never got proficient at it. So we bring kids in and train them, and until they're good enough, we don't allow them to do customers' fish. So he probably only practiced filleting maybe 8 to 10 days out of those 20 days. Another part of their job is to be friendly to customers, to help people fish, to pick up paper and stay busy. This probably was his first job because he was only, I think, 16 at the time. So after he was here several times, it became obvious to me that this job just wasn't for him. He wasn't able to make eye contact with customers and be friendly to them. And he never got good enough for us to allow him to fillet customers' fish. So I talked to his direct supervisor, who already was on board and saw the situation. He talked to Bryan, and really mutually they decided that job was not for him.
Some things are a little odd with him. He was always like, he had to be like the number one person in the room.
Tom says he used to be around 300 pounds, then lost a lot of weight, and that wasn't the only difference.
My son said he changed a little bit and he got pretty aggressive with him and mean to him and stuff. And my son broke off relations with him. He just never seen him anymore.
The last time the Arntz family saw him was when Kohberger was working as a security guard at a local school a couple years back.
When we talked to him there, everything seemed, normal. He was polite and everything. It was very, very weird to hear this stuff. Very intelligent. And then, he would explain things in like a really odd way that had to be really sophisticated way of explaining stuff.
Just hung out and talked, and that's what it was. It wasn't anything crazy, just a typical friendship.
It's crazy when you sit there and you realize that the person that was in your parents' home, in your friend's home, you were in their car, you were in his house. I knew his mom. She was a substitute teacher at Pleasant Valley. Again, he obviously no longer has a Facebook, but they still allow you to filter old messages. Here's something. I invited him to a party back in 2014. He seemed fine. It's crazy just what can switch in someone's brain. The whole heroin incident, I didn't know that he was literally making me drive to get him heroin until Brendan told me. So I messaged him a pretty rotten message just because I was pissed. I didn't know there was fucking heroin in my car. But this was, again, 2013. I was 2 years, graduated from high school. He then said he was in rehab. He would randomly message me after that. This is him mentioning he wanted to study criminal justice. Again, back in 2013, he was already hoping to do that. And then that obviously fell through because he said he went to rehab. But apparently he went back at it. And again, in 2017, that's when it seemed like everything was fine and he was doing great for himself. So it's kind of crazy that this fucking happened. But yeah, this is also talking about, hanging out with Bryan, chilling with them. And then Brandon said they're like not friends anymore. And this happened a lot because of what he was doing, his addiction. And he had some anger issues. I know he did kickboxing to kind of help with that. But
Well, first of all, our records show he was in our employment for 4 months, but he probably only worked about 20 days for us. And as far as filleting fish, he never got proficient at it. So we bring kids in and train them, and until they're good enough, we don't allow them to do customers' fish. So he probably only practiced filleting maybe 8 to 10 days out of those 20 days. Another part of their job is to be friendly to customers, to help people fish, to pick up paper and stay busy. This probably was his first job because he was only, I think, 16 at the time. So after he was here several times, it became obvious to me that this job just wasn't for him. He wasn't able to make eye contact with customers and be friendly to them. And he never got good enough for us to allow him to fillet customers' fish. So I talked to his direct supervisor, who already was on board and saw the situation. He talked to Bryan, and really mutually they decided that that job was not for him.
A female friend of Bryan's named Bree comes forward and says Bryan was really funny. He wasn't outgoing at all, but he also wasn't shy.
I used to go on night runs with him because, like, I didn't want to go running at night by myself. So I would text him like, "Hey, you want to go for a run?" We go for 6-7 mile runs at night. So, like, when the
So here we have another example of Bryan doing an activity at night. Now, remember, we talked in our last live stream about a neighbor who said that he would hear Bryan intermittently using his dish disposal in the middle of the night. And there was another account of him vacuuming at night. Now that places him in his apartment. We have in one of the filings by Ann Taylor saying, you know, for the alibi, my client has a history and a habit of driving around at night, blah, blah, blah. So, you know, here we have this guy who's saying we used to go on night runs. Now, all of these activities take place at night, but Ann is saying that, you know, his alibi is he was driving around that night because that's what he likes to do. But we have other people who have come out saying like, well, that I don't know. It's like, it's interesting that she's trying to say he has a habit of night driving, but there's other accounts of him actually not being in a car at night and doing other activities. So it's just interesting kind of hearing everyone's account of what they knew about Bryan. And then when we listen to his alibi and they're trying to just chalk up that driving around thing as like, oh, well, it's just something he always does. You know, it's interesting. Now we do know again that he got that seatbelt violation and that took place at night. And that was less than 2 miles away from the house. I think it was like 1.6 miles away when he got pulled over around 11:30 at night. That places him in a car driving around the house. But you know, that could also be looked at as like, okay, so he was stalking the area or, you know, so it's all interesting to kind of listen to and kind of take in from all angles, the court filings that we've gotten information from, people who knew him prior, and all that stuff is still coming out. So it's interesting too, because they were talking about him getting that job, at that security, the one friend's father was talking about the security job that they saw him at. Now that I think would have been after he got kicked out of that law enforcement program, because they also came out saying that he used the law enforcement program on his resume to get that security job. So it's just interesting to kind of look at this timeline of like where he was in his like careers, quote unquote, and all that.
When I saw who it was, I was just in like complete shock. This photo of Kohberger taken during a group project at DeSales University in 2019. Students who studied with him did say he was, quote, controlling during the group project.
Very much liked it when everybody in the room knew that he knew what was going on, but it wasn't enough that you knew that he knew. He had to make absolutely sure you understood that he was smart, that he had this intellectual capacity. Bryan seemed like he was on the knife's edge between exhaustion and burnout, and at the time it was extremely difficult to tell which was which. Did notice that he became a little chattier, he became a little more animated. Mostly what I noticed though is he was always showing up a little late, and he was always showing up with a cup of coffee in hand. He seemed like he was more exhausted going into the tail end of the tour.
There were also other incidents that led up to this situation, even one at a bar where he was actually banned from the bar for his actions toward a female there. I think
now this, going back and re-listening to, you know, the the actions that took place at the bar, we can see it right on the screen. Like, he would get upset with them a little bit. In one instance, he recalled him calling one of the employees a B word when she declined to answer his questions. Now, this stuff, I think, is also after he was allegedly kicked out of that law enforcement program for his behavior towards females there. So, it kind of corroborates that claim from his past. And now it's in a different setting here at this bar. And now remember also the administrator came out to Fox News this week saying that, at surface level, a lot of people would kind of be shocked that it was Bryan that did this crime allegedly. But knowing what she knew for, the reason that the females kind of went to the teacher and the teacher went to her about this incident that they couldn't like dig too deeply into, she said it all kind of like made sense. So just very curious what all this information is. And hello, Law and Crime Network.
All of this speaks to possible, hatred toward women. I believe it was a true femicide situation. I think that he has struggled his whole life to really have acceptance. If indeed Bryan Kohberger is found convicted of these crimes, that's what we're seeing with his background and something that just built up inside of him, and he lashed out.
It appears that Bryan wrote posts on Reddit asking for help researching why people commit crimes. Does this fact give more?
All right. So I think that's where we'll leave off today. Glad you guys got some updates with me. Again, we'll be following this case, even though they have delayed the trial. Everything that, all the motions that we can kind of get our hands on, we'll kind of pick through and look at and try to make sense of. And yeah, I just appreciate you guys being here with me tonight. I know that the nighttime live streams are not my normal schedule, but I really don't know what my normal schedule is going to be. As you all know who have kids, everything kind of happens in phases. So the morning live streams worked for us. Now I'm just feeling like I won't be able to go live until I kind of have like my hands free completely, which is at the end of the day or during her nap, which would be in the afternoon. So that's also another possibility. Either way, I'll try to keep you guys informed. If you join my Facebook group too, I will link it down below. But that is another way that I can kind of update you guys on when I'll be going live, because sometimes YouTube doesn't give you the notification. So again, we'll be talking very soon. I appreciate you guys being here. If you haven't hit like or subscribed, please do so. And yeah, I just want to thank all my moderators and just everyone who's chatted tonight. And yeah, we'll talk soon, guys. Bye.